Up until now, you've been collecting, setting up tools, pulling data, perhaps for many weeks, perhaps for only a few weeks, because the online class doesn't have very many weeks. Nonetheless, that was the setup. And now comes the part that actually matters, figuring out what that data means. This lecture is about the leap from having data to having insight. They are not the same thing, and the gap between them is where most social media measurement fails. This quote on the screen, this is where most of you are right now. You have weeks of data or 2 weeks of data. You know brand A has more followers. You know brand B has higher engagement. And you're staring at your spreadsheet thinking, okay, now what? That feeling is totally normal. It is also the exact moment where good analysts are separated from mediocre ones. Here is the distinction. Data tells you what happened. Analysis tells you what it means. Insight tells you what to do about it. Many reports stop at data. Some get to analysis, but very few reach actual insight. And that is what makes you valuable, right? Your insight. So your job in this module is to get all the way to insight. Not just here are the numbers, but here are what the numbers mean. And this is what this brand should think about social media. Let me show you what I mean. Here's a concrete example. Look at the left column, data. Brand A has 45K followers. Brand B has 32K. Brand A has 2.1% engagement. Brand B has 3.8%. These are facts. They are correct. They're also completely useless unless you do something with them. Now look at the middle column, analysis. Brand B has fewer followers but significantly higher engagement. See how that's different? We're not just reporting numbers, we're interpreting what those numbers mean. Now you go to the right column where we're looking for insight. Brand B's community-focused strategy outperforms Brand A's reach-focused approach. Recommend shifting resources from follower acquisition to engagement. Now you have something actionable. Now you have a real recommendation. And somebody could read this, change what they're doing, and have success. Every finding in your analysis needs to climb this ladder. If you stop at data, you have not analyzed anything. You've just made a report that could have been automated. And if it can be automated, it will in the future, and you will be out of a job. So how do you actually do this? How do you move from data to analysis? Well, you need frameworks for comparison. And here are the 3 I want you to use. First, side by side. Brand A versus brand B on the same metric, the same time frame. This is your direct comparison. Which brand performs better on whatever platform it is, whatever metric you're choosing to use at that time. Second, trend over time. How has performance changed week over week? Is engagement going up or is engagement going down? Did something happen in week 4 that changed the pattern? This is your temporal comparison. Third, benchmark. And this is important and people forget about it. How do both brands compare to industry averages? A 2% engagement rate means nothing in isolation. Is it good? Is it bad? Is it just okay? You need to understand what the average is or what the industry as a whole is doing. You need reference points. Those are reference points to understand what that means. So use all 3. A complete analysis needs comparison, trend, and context. If you are only doing side by side, then you're missing the bigger picture. Here's something that trips people up. Not every data point matters. Some of what you collected is signal. Some of it is noise. And your job is figuring out which is which. Noise is the stuff that looks like it might mean something, but it doesn't. Small fluctuations from week to week. One viral post that skews all the averages. Holiday variations. Platform algorithm hiccups. Metrics that do not connect to your objectives. Signal is the stuff that actually matters. Consistent patterns over 4 or more weeks. Differences of 20% or more between brands. Sentiment shifts that you can tie to specific things that happen, specific events. Content types that consistently outperform others. Metrics that directly answer the questions in your objectives. If brand A's engagement dipped 3% in 1 week, that's probably noise. If brand A's engagement has been declining steadily for 6 weeks, that's signal. Here are some practical guidelines. This is not your research class, so I'm not going to make you calculate significance. Although this is why being able to calculate significance makes you a more valuable employee, right? But anyhow, more informally, you do need some sense of when a difference is meaningful. For this class, less than 10% difference, probably noise. Don't report it as a finding. Or again, if you're working on a really short timeline, which is the online class, report it as a finding, but note that is a very small difference because that's within normal variation. 10 to 20%, worth noting, but don't overstate it. You can mention it, but hedge it appropriately. 20 to 50%, yep, that's something meaningful, and you need to explore why it happened. And this should probably be one of the findings in your analysis. More than 50%, that's a huge gap, right? It's definitely a key finding. Something is happening here, and you really need to look at it. Now, these are guidelines, not rules. A 15% difference when you're in a crisis might be huge. A 50% difference in likes on a Tuesday versus Wednesday probably isn't. You need to be able to use your judgment about what's important. So here are 4 pitfalls, 4 problems, 4 mistakes that people make when they're when they're talking about analysis. And it's your professional credibility and, in my class, your grade that is on the line here. So avoid these, please. First, confirmation bias. This is common in all sorts of places, but here we're talking about when you go looking for evidence that supports what you already believe. You've decided brand B is better before you started, so you only look for data that proves it. Make sure you are actively looking for data that contradicts your hypothesis. And if you can't find any data that is negative, that is going against what you think, you're probably not looking hard enough. Cherry picking. We often do this when we work for a brand, right? We highlight our wins, we hide our losses because we want to look good. I get that. But only showing the metrics where your brand looks good is a problem because it may not reflect reality. Report the full picture, even the unflattering parts. Acknowledging weaknesses makes your analysis more credible, not less. It allows you to fix the problems because that's what you really want to do. You want to find problems and fix them. You don't want to just pretend that everything's fine when it's not. Correlation versus causation, right? Engagement rises after you post videos, so videos caused it, maybe. Or maybe it was something else entirely, right? Use hedged language. Always say things like suggests instead of proves, correlates with instead of caused, and consider alternate explanations. Look really carefully at what's going on. Sometimes correlation is causation. Sometimes it is the fact that people love video, but sometimes it's what the video is of. like you only shoot video of cute kittens, but when you're showing something else, it's a still picture. That kind of stuff makes a difference. And lastly, small sample panic. Engagement dropped 50% based on 2 posts. That is not a trend. That could be anything. That is random. You want to wait for meaningful sample sizes before you draw conclusions, which is why we look at data over time. A few data points do not make a pattern. So here's the single most important tool for improving your analysis. For every finding, ask yourself, so what? Why does this matter? If you can't answer in one sentence, only one sentence, it's not an insight. It is just data. Look at the sample on the screen. The finding is that brand's B engagement rate is 3.8 versus brand A's 2.1. So what? Brand B's audience is more invested despite being smaller. Their community building approach creates more meaningful connections than Brand A's reach focused strategy. Now what? If a Muskrat, which by the way is sort of like new carrot but different, wants to engage customers over raw reach, they should study Brand B's content strategy and community management approach. Figure out how that works. Find leads to interpretation that leads to a recommendation, right? Finding leads to interpretation leads to recommendation. There is a flow in every one of your findings that you need to follow. Remember module 2? Way back then, you set objectives. You set business objectives, and then you set communication objectives and KPIs. And that's not just busy work. Those objectives should be driving your entire analysis. Look at the flow on the screen. Business objective, increase sales by 15%. That led to a communication objective, drive qualified traffic from Instagram to product pages, which led to KPIs, link clicks, click-through rates, and saves. Your analysis should never answer, or excuse me, I'm wrong. Your analysis should answer, are we meeting those KPIs? How does our performance compare to the competitor? What is working and what is not, and what should we do differently? So if you find yourself reporting on metrics that have nothing to do with your objectives, stop. They're probably vanity metrics, or your objectives need revisiting. One of the two. Either what you're reporting on is something that you're not reporting on what you should be, and you should look for the things that you should be reporting on, or what you decided were KPIs really aren't KPIs, and therefore you need to look again at both your KPIs and your objectives. Everything should connect back. So I want you to show you the difference between weak analysis and strong analysis with the same data, completely different quality. And I'm going to repeat this again later in the module on its very own page, but we're going to go over it quickly right now. On the left, we see Exhibit A, weak analysis. Brand A has 45,000 followers and Brand B has 32,000. Brand A posts 5 times a week while Brand B posts 3 times. Brand A's engagement rate is 2.1 and Brand B's is 3.8. That's it. That's the whole thing. Well, that's facts. There's no interpretation, no context. Any computer can spew that out, and there's no so what. I could have gotten it from Excel. Now, look at the right side. Here we have strong analysis, and it sounds like this. Despite having 29% fewer followers, Brand B's engagement rate, 3.8%, is 81% higher than Brand A's, 2.1%. This suggests that Brand B has a more invested community. Their less frequent posting, 3 times versus 5 times a week, correlates with higher per post performance, indicating that quality over quantity may be more effective in this space. The difference is that one lists facts and the other interprets meaning. One is something that any spreadsheet can do, and therefore, why do we need you? The second, however, is what makes you beloved with your brand, right? You are giving them some real advice. You are interpreting real data to find things that could be changed. Before you turn in your comparative analysis draft, I want you to run through this checklist. Does every finding connect to an objective from Module 2? If you have findings that don't connect back to your objectives, you can cut them, but I would rather you explain to me why they matter or why you think they ended up where they were, because again, short class, we don't have a lot of time to go back through the analysis or to change anything really to start more measurement. Have you used all three frameworks? Side-by-side comparison, trend over time, and benchmark against industry? If you're missing one, then your analysis is incomplete. You need to pass the "so what" test for each insight. Read each finding out loud. If you cannot immediately explain why it matters, revise what you're saying. Have you considered alternate explanations? For every causal claim you make, have you thought about what else might explain the pattern? Did you report limitation and data gaps honestly? This is not a weakness. It is a strength. It shows that you understand what your data can and cannot support. Would someone unfamiliar with the data understand your conclusions? If your data only makes sense to you, then it needs clarification. So where do we go from here? What's next? This week, we're going to apply these principles to your project data, right? I have another lecture, lecture 5B, aptly named, which is about using AI as your analysis partner. And we'll get into specific prompts and workflows and how to verify what AI tells you. Watch that before you start the first assignment, which is your AI analysis session. Then you're going to do your comparative analysis draft, which is something that you will incorporate into your final project. No wasted work here. And then you have your objective alignment check, which verifies the comparative analysis draft against Module 2 objectives. So you can make sure that what you've collected relates to what the objectives that you set out in Module 2, or that you're explaining why it doesn't. It's important to remember this whole section is about data is only raw material. Insight is the product. Insight is what you bring.